Hi everyone. Okay, I'm here to tell you about the application paper assignment, which is really exciting. And so for this assignment, what you're going to do is I'm going to give you several different cases. These are cases that you might encounter in a school setting as a school counselor. It's a dilemma, an ethical dilemma that you might be faced with. And so you're going to choose one of the cases that I provide for you. And then what you're going to do is you're going to write a paper whereby you follow the 9 steps of the American School Counselor Association's ethical decision-making model. Now, if you look in your in the ASCA's ethical standards for school counselors, section F. In section F, that's where the steps are outlined. And so, what I've done for you is in part 3 down below of this assignment, you'll see that I'm providing you with a template for your paper. That template is already APA formatted. All you have to do is replace the content with your own content. And so, as I go through and talk about this right now, in fact, it might behoove you to go ahead and pull up that template so that you can look at it while I talk about it. If you need to do that, pause the video now and go open it and come back. If not, let's keep going. So if you're looking at the template, you'll see that on the cover page, you'll just replace the info there with your own information. Beginning on page 2, you'll replace the title with the title of your paper. And then the body of that section tells you what to include in the section. So you see that the paper begins with, it says begin here with an introduction. The introduction doesn't need to be long. It can be just a paragraph or 2. This is where you'll set the stage for what's to come in the paper, and on and on. You'll see also that I've included information about how to use in-text citations correctly in that introductory section of the template. Then you'll go down and you'll see the next level 1 heading, or rather the first level 1 heading, will be case. This is where you're just going to copy and paste the case right here. You're not going to need to cite a source or anything. You're just going to type the case word for word. And then you'll go down, you'll see a level 2 heading that says step 1. This is step 1 of the decision-making model. And step 1 is defining the problem. And you'll see that in this section it says you're going to define the problem by outlining the facts of the case. You're going to separate innuendos and assumptions from the facts. And you're going to answer the question, does this case pose an ethical, legal, clinical, or professional problem, or a combination of them? And it even tells you in this section, you need to have at least 1 paragraph, and each and every paragraph in your paper needs to have at least 3 sentences. 2 sentences does not comprise a good full paragraph. Then the next level 2 heading, step 2. This is where you're going to apply the ASCA ethical standards and the law. So you'll begin this section with a little intro that says what you're going to talk about in this section, and then you'll move down and there'll be a level 3 heading, ASCA ethical standards. This is where you're going to discuss ethical standards that apply to your case. You will need to use in-text citations correctly from those standards. And so you're just, that's so funny because I said something and Alexa heard me and started talking. Let's go on. And then after you talk about the ethical standards that apply, then you have a level 3 heading that says law. And so in this subsection, you're going to discuss any laws that are pertinent to your case. You probably are going to have to do some research to find this information. Because it's kind of tricky to cite law, you know, all you're going to have to do really is probably minimal in-text citation is appropriate here. If you're going to cite the Texas Education Code, you can just cite the code number. If you're going to cite an act, like the No Child Left Behind Act, then you would just do No Child Left Behind Act with the year in parentheses. I mean, I'm not going to get crazy with you about how you're going to cite the law, but I do want you to discuss law in this paragraph or this section. After you're done with that, you see a level 2 heading, step 3. This is where you're going to consider the student. And you're going to have to, what you're going to have to do here is you're going to begin with an introduction. And the introduction is going to outline, which theories of development that you are going to consider for this case. Then, so for example, you might consider the student's development in terms of Piaget's theory of cognitive development. So you would, cognitively, where are children typically, at in their development at this age. And then Kohlberg's theory of moral development is one you might choose to discuss for this case, or Erikson's psychosocial development. But you're going to have to choose at least 2 different theories, and it can be, these are just examples that I give you, Piaget, Kohlberg, and Erikson's theories. They're just examples. But you're going to have to choose 2 developmental theories to discuss and to apply to the student in the case, okay? And so you can see here that level 3 heading, I have 3 level 3 headings in this section. I have Piaget's, Kohlberg's, and Erikson's. And you would just in each of those sections discuss the student's development according to those theories. Then when you're done, oh goodness, 4. Okay, you go to step 4. This is and this is where you talk about other considerations. Specifically, you're going to want to consider the setting, parents' rights, and minors' rights. And so level 3 heading setting, this is where you're going to talk about, where is the situation occurring? What dilemmas does the setting pose? Who else is present in this setting? And how does the setting affect the situation? Another level 3 heading will need to be parents' rights. So this is where you'll discuss any rights pertaining to parents that are important to consider. And then minors' rights. You'll have a little section on that. When you're done with step 4, you'll move to step 5, another level 2 heading. This is where you're going to find the 5 moral principles. Now, the American School Counseling Association has adopted 5 moral principles to guide work in school counseling, and those are autonomy, beneficence, non-malfeasance, justice, and loyalty. So you'll see that in the part 3 part of this assignment down below, I provided you with an article that talks about those guiding principles, moral principles. And so in this section, what you're going to do is begin with an intro, and then you're going to discuss each of those principles as it applies to this case that you've chosen. And for each of them, you have a level 3 heading. When you're done with that, you'll go down to step 6, and this is where you will determine potential courses of action and their consequences. So in this section, you'll begin with an intro, and then you'll go down to a level 2 heading, and you will identify one potential course of action that you as a school counselor could take, okay? And after you identify that course of action, you'll have a level 4 heading where, and in this section, you're going to talk about, okay, if I take that course of action, what are some potential consequences of doing that? Once you talk about the first course of action and the consequences, then you'll go back down to, you'll have a level 3 heading that says second potential course of action. You'll identify another potential course of action, and then a level 4 heading in section where you talk about potential consequences of that. When you're done with that, you'll see a level 2 heading, Step 7, select an action and evaluate it. So in this section, you will state which course of action from the two you described in the section above that you would take if you were the school counselor in this situation. It says include an explanation of why you're choosing that selected action. Then you'll go down to step 8, and this is where you will consult. So before you write this section, you're going to need to consult with at least one school counselor or to get, his or her opinion of the course of action you have chosen to take. And you will need to use in-text citations to document that personal communication. And then you'll notice that even though there are 9 steps in the ASCA decision-making model, I don't include step 9 in this template because step 9 is just implement your chosen course of action. So you're going to end your paper with a level 1 heading that says conclusion, and here you're just going to summarize the information that you've provided in the paper and talk about the parts of the case that were most difficult for you to consider, and reflecting on the input from the school counselor, etc. You are going to include a references page. On the reference page that you see here, I've given you directions, some very specific things to be mindful of when you do your reference page. It needs to be evenly double spaced, just like every other page. The title, references, needs to be on the very first line of the page, not down, which for some reason a lot of people tend to do. Every reference, if it's longer than one line and goes to the second line, it needs to have a hanging indent. You need to consult Chapter 7 of your APA manual if you are not sure how to document a reference correctly. You must include the ASCA standards for school counselors in the reference list. You will not include the personal communication in your reference list. Now, let me back up. You will use in-text citations in your paper, but you won't document it on your reference list, and that's because the purpose of a reference list is to direct the reader to the location where that reference can be found if they want to look at it themselves. But a personal communication is not retrievable, and so we don't put it on the reference list because it can't be retrieved, but we do document it in the paper where appropriate. You do not need to worry about putting laws that you have discussed in your paper on this list. Again, just be sure that you're using in-text citations to the best of your ability in the paper to cite that stuff. And you must include references from other sources that you cite in your paper. So if you are citing stuff from Piaget's theory of cognitive development, you need to have a reference for, where you got that information. I hope that this template is helpful for you. I'm providing it to you in both Word and PDF file. In the event that the Word formatting goes crazy whenever I upload it, you'll be able to see how it's supposed to look with the PDF. And this isn't due until May 2nd. And so let's see, what else might I need to tell you? Not due until May 2nd. When you are ready to submit it, you'll come back here to week 10 and you will go to part 4 below and submit it for grading. You're welcome to submit it early or not. Okay. So if you have any questions, shoot me an email, and I look forward to reading your papers.